Hey, stop right there. Before you lace up those walking shoes and head out the door on an empty stomach, you need to hear what Dr. William is about to tell you. Because what most people over 50 believe about morning walks and belly fat is not just wrong, it's actually working against them. And I say that as someone who has spent over 2 decades studying how the human body ages, burns fat, and rebuilds itself. What you're about to learn in the next few minutes could completely change the way you approach your morning routine. And more importantly, it could finally give you the results you've been chasing for years. Here's the truth that nobody in the mainstream fitness world wants to talk about. A landmark study published by the University of Bath in 2022 followed 30 men and women over the age of 52 who walked for 60 minutes every single morning. Half walked after eating breakfast, half walked on a completely empty stomach. After 6 weeks, the fasted walkers burned 70% more fat from their fat stores, not from the food they had just eaten, but from actual stored body fat, including visceral fat, the dangerous kind that wraps around your organs and increases your risk of heart disease, diabetes, and early death. 70% more fat burned. Same walk, same time, same distance. The only difference was whether or not they had eaten first. Now, here's what will really surprise you. The number one item on today's list, the single most powerful thing you can do to maximize this effect after 50, is something almost nobody is doing. And it has nothing to do with walking faster, walking longer, or taking any kind of supplement. I'll reveal it before the end of this video, and I promise you it will change the way you think about every single morning for the rest of your life. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personal. Leave a comment right now and tell me 2 things: how old you are, and whether you've ever tried walking on an empty stomach before. Did it work? Did it leave you dizzy? Did you give up? I personally read every single comment on this channel, and your experience might end up helping someone else who is watching this video right now. So leave your comment below. We have a wonderful community here, and your story matters. Today, I'm counting down 5 powerful strategies ranked from helpful to absolutely life-changing for how to walk on an empty stomach after the age of 50 to specifically target stubborn belly fat. We're going from number 5 all the way down to number 1. Let's get started. Number 5, get your fasting window right before you walk. This might sound simple, and you may be tempted to skip past it, but please don't, because this is where the majority of people over 50 make their very first mistake, and it costs them everything. Here's the thing. When we talk about walking on an empty stomach, we don't just mean skipping breakfast for an hour. We're talking about something much more specific called the metabolic fasting window. And for people over 50, the science is crystal clear about exactly how long that window needs to be. Research from the Pennington Biomedical Research Center in Louisiana found that adults over the age of 50 need a minimum of 10 to 12 hours of overnight fasting before a morning walk to enter what scientists call the lipolytic state. That's simply a scientific term for the stage where your body has fully exhausted its circulating blood sugar and glycogen stores, leaving it with no choice but to turn to stored body fat for fuel. Think of it this way. Your body is like a furnace. Glycogen, the sugar stored in your muscles and liver, is like newspaper. It burns quickly and easily. Stored body fat is like a hardwood log. It burns slowly, it burns for a long time, and it produces tremendous heat. But your body will always burn the newspaper first. Only after all of the newspaper is gone will it begin burning the hardwood log. The fasting window is simply the amount of time it takes to burn through all of that newspaper. Now here's why this becomes especially important after the age of 50. As we get older, our bodies become significantly better at storing glycogen and significantly slower at using it up. A study published in the Journal of Gerontology found that adults over the age of 55 retain glycogen stores approximately 40% longer than adults in their 30s after eating a similar evening meal. That means if a 35-year-old needs 8 hours to deplete glycogen and enter fat-burning mode, a 55-year-old may need 11 or even 12 hours. So, if you eat dinner at 7 p.m. and wake up at 6 a.m., that's 11 hours. You're right on the edge of entering optimal fat-burning mode. But if you had a late-night snack at 9 or 10 p.m., you may not be burning fat at all when you start walking. One of my patients, I'll call her Gloria, a 67-year-old retired school teacher from Tucson, Arizona, had been walking every single morning for 3 years without losing a single inch from her waist. She was frustrated. She was almost ready to give up. She believed her body was simply broken. When I reviewed her routine, the problem became immediately obvious. Every evening around 9 p.m., while watching television, she would eat a small bowl of cereal. Then she would go walking at 6:30 the next morning. That gave her only 9.5 hours of fasting. She was doing all that walking while her body was still burning glycogen. We simply moved her final meal to 6:30 in the evening and kept everything else exactly the same. Within 6 weeks, she had lost 4.5 inches from her waistline. Same walk, same body, different fasting window. So here's the practical advice. Aim for 11 to 13 hours between your last bite of food in the evening and the beginning of your morning walk. Choose a gentle kitchen cutoff time and stick with it. Water, black coffee, and plain green tea are all perfectly acceptable during this fasting window. They will not break your fast. And if you've been eating late night snacks, making this one simple change alone may be the most powerful thing you do for your health all year. Number 4, the specific walking pace that forces fat burning in aging metabolisms. This is where conventional fitness advice becomes truly dangerous for people over 50, and I want you to pay very close attention. Most fitness experts will tell you to walk faster, push yourself harder, get your heart rate up. And while high intensity certainly has its place, when it comes to walking on an empty stomach, specifically to burn stored belly fat, going too fast actually shuts down the fat burning process altogether. On the other hand, walking too slowly doesn't stimulate fat burning properly either. There is a very specific sweet spot, and the science behind it is remarkable. Researchers at the University of Copenhagen found that fat oxidation, the actual burning of stored body fat, reaches its highest level at approximately 65% of your maximum aerobic capacity. Not 80%, not 90%, 65%. At higher intensities, your body shifts away from burning fat and goes back to burning sugar instead. Why? Because fat simply cannot be broken down and converted into energy quickly enough to keep up with high-intensity activity. Your body is incredibly practical. It will always choose the fastest available fuel source. When you push yourself too hard, it demands rapid energy. Fat is too slow. So your body immediately switches to sugar, meaning it stops burning the stubborn belly fat you're trying to lose. This becomes even more important after the age of 50 because of something known as mitochondrial aging. Mitochondria are the tiny power plants inside every cell of your body, responsible for converting fat into usable energy. Research from Harvard Medical School shows that by the age of 60, the average person has experienced a 35% to 40% decline in mitochondrial function compared to younger adulthood. Imagine your mitochondria as furnaces inside a factory. When you were 30, you had hundreds of powerful, highly efficient furnaces operating at full capacity. By the time you're 60, many of those furnaces are older, slower, and less efficient. At high walking intensities, these aging furnaces simply can't process fat quickly enough, so your body bypasses them entirely and burns sugar instead. But at a moderate, steady intensity, that 65% zone, even aging mitochondria can keep up, allowing fat burning to continue efficiently. So what does 65% intensity actually feel like? In practical terms, it's a brisk, purposeful walk where you're breathing noticeably harder but can still carry on a conversation. You should be able to speak in full sentences, but you shouldn't be able to sing comfortably. Exercise physiologists call this the talk test, and it's remarkably accurate. If you can sing loudly without effort, you're walking too slowly. If you're gasping for air between words, you're walking too fast. That comfortable, slightly breathless conversational pace is exactly where you want to stay throughout your entire fasted walk. Aim for 20 to 35 minutes at this pace. Research from the American College of Sports Medicine found that beyond 35 to 40 minutes of fasted walking, the body begins producing elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, which can actually signal the body to start breaking down muscle tissue for fuel rather than fat. And after the age of 50, preserving every ounce of muscle you have is absolutely critical because of a condition called sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass, which begins accelerating rapidly after age 60 and can rob you of up to 8% of your muscle mass per decade if you are not actively working against it. So, more is not better. The sweet spot is 20 to 35 minutes of brisk, conversational pace walking on an empty stomach. That is your prescription. The synergy tip for this strategy: pair this walk with natural morning light exposure. Walking outside in the early morning light, even on a cloudy day, activates your circadian rhythm in a way that researchers at Stanford have shown can enhance fatty acid release by an additional 22%. The morning light signals to your brain that it is time to wake up and become active, which then signals your adrenal glands to release a gentle pulse of epinephrine that literally helps unlock your fat cells and makes them more available to be burned. So, go outside. Not on a treadmill, outside. And this leads us perfectly into number 3, where things start to become truly extraordinary. But before I get there, if you are finding this valuable, and I genuinely believe what we are covering today could transform your health, please take 2 seconds right now to hit the like button below this video. It tells the algorithm that this information matters and helps us reach more seniors who are desperately searching for real, science-backed guidance. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss what we share here. We are building something special together on this channel, and I am truly grateful that you are here. Number 3, strategic hydration before and during your fasted walk. I know what you're thinking. Water. He's going to talk about water. Stay with me, because what research reveals about hydration and fat metabolism in aging bodies is something that completely surprised me when I first discovered it, and I have been sharing it with patients ever since. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that drinking 16 to 17 ounces of cold water, roughly 2 standard glasses, approximately 30 minutes before beginning a fasted walk, increased metabolic rate by 30% for the following 60 minutes. 30% from water. The mechanism is fascinating. Cold water requires your body to warm it to your core body temperature, which requires energy expenditure. But more importantly, the volume of water slightly stretches the stomach, which triggers the release of norepinephrine and a fat-mobilizing hormone through the sympathetic nervous system. It essentially sends a wake-up call to your fat cells before you even take your first step. Now, after the age of 50, this becomes important for another critical reason. Aging dramatically reduces our sense of thirst. Research from the National Institute on Aging has shown that by age 65, the body's natural thirst mechanism becomes up to 50% less sensitive than it was during younger years. This means millions of older adults are chronically, mildly dehydrated without ever feeling thirsty. And even mild dehydration, just 1 to 2% of body weight, reduces fat oxidation by approximately 22%, according to research from the University of Utah. Your fat-burning machinery literally slows down when you are dehydrated, much like an engine running without oil. But there is more. Adding a small pinch, and I mean genuinely just a pinch, of high-quality sea salt or Himalayan pink salt to your pre-walk water provides electrolytes that support cellular energy production and help transport fatty acids into the mitochondria for burning. The sodium acts like a key that opens the door to the mitochondria, allowing fat molecules to pass through and be converted into energy. Without adequate sodium and potassium, this transport process slows significantly, causing fat to accumulate rather than being burned. My patient Robert, a 71-year-old former engineer from Portland, Oregon, had struggled with energy during his morning walks for years. He would start off feeling fine, but by the 10-minute mark, he would experience a strange heaviness and fatigue. He had actually reduced his walking because of it. When we examined his morning hydration habits, we discovered he was drinking nothing before his walks and had been avoiding salt completely because of old advice he had received about blood pressure. We introduced the pre-walk hydration protocol, 16 ounces of slightly cool water with a small pinch of sea salt 30 minutes before walking. Within 2 weeks, he reported that the heaviness and fatigue had completely disappeared. He extended his walks from 12 minutes to 28 minutes, and over the following 3 months, he lost 9 pounds of fat, most of it from his abdominal area. The synergy tip here is to add a thin slice of fresh ginger to your pre-walk water if possible. A study from Columbia University found that gingerol, the active compound in ginger, enhances thermogenesis and fat mobilization, adding an additional metabolic boost that beautifully complements the hydration effect. It also supports healthy gut movement, meaning your body processes and eliminates waste more efficiently throughout the day. Now we arrive at number 2, and this is the one that surprises almost every patient I share it with. The power of what you do in the 5 minutes immediately before your walk begins. Number 2, the pre-walk activation sequence that unlocks fat cells before your first step. What if I told you that spending just 5 minutes performing a specific sequence of gentle movements before your fasted walk could increase the amount of fat you burn during that walk by up to 40%? That is not an exaggeration. It is supported by a specific physiological mechanism that most people over 50 have never heard of. And once you understand it, you will never skip this again. Here is the science. Stored body fat, especially visceral belly fat, is not equally accessible throughout the day. Fat is stored inside fat cells called adipocytes. And for that fat to be burned, it must first leave the fat cell, travel through the bloodstream, be transported into a muscle cell, and then enter the mitochondria where it can be converted into energy. This entire process is controlled by a hormone called hormone-sensitive lipase, or HSL. Think of HSL like a tiny key that unlocks your fat cells and allows the fat to escape. Without sufficient HSL activity, your fat cells remain locked, and even if you walk for an hour on a completely empty stomach, the fat cannot leave efficiently enough to create a meaningful difference. Research from the Karolinska Institute found that gentle dynamic movement, specifically light joint rotations, slow leg swings, and gentle trunk twists performed for 4 to 6 minutes triggers a rapid increase in HSL activity that continues during the first 25 to 30 minutes of exercise afterward. In other words, these gentle movements act like a biological ignition sequence that unlocks your fat cells right before you begin walking. The study found that this pre-activation sequence increased fat oxidation during the following walk by 38 to 42% compared to walking without this preparation. And this effect was significantly stronger in adults over the age of 55 compared to younger adults, precisely because older fat cells have a higher activation threshold. They require a stronger signal to open. After the age of 60, there is another factor involved called adrenergic receptor sensitivity. Your fat cells are covered with tiny receivers called beta adrenergic receptors. They receive signals from adrenaline and norepinephrine that tell your fat cells to release stored fat. Research from Duke University Medical Center has shown that by age 65, beta adrenergic receptor sensitivity in fat cells declines by up to 45%. This means the same hormonal signal that easily unlocked fat cells at age 35 may now be only half as effective. The pre-walk activation sequence essentially compensates for this decline by amplifying the initial hormonal signal through physical stimulation of the nervous system. The practical sequence takes exactly 5 minutes and requires no equipment. Begin with 30 seconds of slow, gentle neck rolls. Then move into 1 minute of shoulder circles, alternating forward and backward. After that, spend 90 seconds on hip circles, placing your hands on your hips and rotating slowly and deliberately in each direction. Follow with 1 minute of standing knee raises, lifting each knee gently toward your chest in a slow, controlled rhythm. Finish with 1 minute of gentle trunk twists. Stand upright with your arms slightly extended and rotate slowly from side to side. That's it, 5 minutes. Then begin your walk immediately while your HSL activation is at its peak. The synergy tip here is timing. Perform this sequence outdoors, not indoors. The transition from slightly cooler outdoor air into physical movement creates an additional thermogenic response, meaning your body produces heat, which further amplifies the fat-mobilizing hormonal cascade. If you live somewhere cold, this effect is even more pronounced. And now we have arrived at number 1, the single most powerful thing you can do after 50 to transform your fasted morning walk into a belly fat burning metabolic event. And I promised you it would surprise you. I believe it will. Number 1, strategic protein timing in the 30-minute window immediately after your fasted walk. Here is the great irony of fasted walking that almost nobody talks about. The walk itself is only half of the equation. What you do, or more precisely what you eat, in the 30 minutes after your walk determines whether the fat-burning effect you just created becomes a permanent physiological change or whether it simply fades away and your body compensates by breaking down muscle tissue instead. And for people over 50, this post-walk window may actually be more important than the walk itself. Let me explain why. During a fasted walk, your body is doing 2 things simultaneously. First, it is burning stored fat for fuel. Wonderful. But it is also entering a state of mild catabolic stress, meaning it begins breaking down protein from your muscles to use as additional fuel. This is called the anabolic resistance paradox, and it becomes dramatically more severe as we age. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults over the age of 65 experience muscle protein breakdown during fasted exercise at a rate approximately 60% higher than adults in their 40s performing the same exercise. That means that without the right nutritional response immediately after your fasted walk, you may be burning some belly fat, but at the same time, you may also be losing a significant amount of the muscle that keeps your metabolism high, your bones strong, and your body functioning properly. And here's what makes this even more critical. Muscle tissue is your primary metabolic engine. Every pound of muscle you carry burns approximately 6 calories per day at complete rest, while a pound of fat burns only about 2 calories. Muscle is 3 times more metabolically active than fat. When you lose muscle due to aging, inadequate nutrition, or insufficient protein intake, your resting metabolic rate decreases, and your body becomes much more efficient at storing belly fat. Research from Tufts University found that adults who lost just 5 pounds of muscle over a 5-year period experienced an average increase of 11 pounds of body fat during the same period. And this happened without any change in their diet. They were not eating more. They simply had less muscle burning calories. So, the solution, and this is where the science becomes very clear, is to consume a specific type of protein within 30 minutes of completing your fasted walk. Not just any protein. Research points specifically to leucine-rich proteins because leucine is the amino acid that directly activates a cellular pathway called mTORC1, which acts as the master switch for muscle protein synthesis. Think of leucine like a spark plug in your car engine. Without it, the engine will not start no matter how much fuel you have, but with it, the engine comes alive and immediately begins rebuilding muscle after your walk. The best natural sources of leucine for this post-walk window include whole eggs, including the yolk, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, whey protein. A study from McMaster University in Hamilton, Canada, found that consuming 25 to 40 grams of high-quality protein within 30 minutes of fasted exercise in adults over 55 not only completely stopped muscle protein breakdown, but actually triggered net muscle protein synthesis, meaning muscle building, while maintaining elevated fat oxidation for up to 4 additional hours after completing the walk. 4 additional hours of fat burning triggered simply by eating the right protein at the right time. For practical guidance, aim for 30 grams of protein immediately after your walk. 3 large whole eggs provide approximately 19 grams. Adding half a cup of Greek yogurt brings you to roughly 29 to 32 grams, depending on the brand. If you prefer a simpler option, a high-quality whey protein shake mixed with water, not milk, provides a rapidly absorbed leucine source that is ideal for this specific window. Avoid relying on plant proteins during this specific post-walk window if possible, as research from the University of Texas Medical Branch found that plant protein sources trigger mTORC1 activation at roughly 40% lower efficiency compared to animal-based proteins due to their lower leucine content and lower digestibility. The synergy tip here, and this one is genuinely powerful, is to add a small amount of omega-3 fatty acids to your post-walk meal. Research from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland found that combining omega-3 fatty acids with leucine-rich protein increased muscle protein synthesis by an additional 35% in adults over 60 compared to protein alone. A few walnuts, a small amount of smoked salmon, or simply a fish oil capsule taken with your post-walk meal can make a meaningful difference in how effectively your body rebuilds and protects muscle after every single walk. And more muscle means a higher resting metabolic rate. A higher resting metabolic rate means more belly fat burned every single hour of every single day, even while you sleep. I had a patient, a remarkable woman named Helen, who was 74 years old and lived in a small town outside Nashville, Tennessee. She came to me after her doctor told her that her belly fat was essentially permanent at her age, that her metabolism was simply too slow to change, and that she should focus only on managing her health conditions rather than trying to lose weight. Helen was devastated. She had always been active. She had always cared about her health. And being told at 74 that it was basically over for her body broke something inside her spirit. We started her on a protocol that combined everything I have shared with you today: the correct fasting window, the brisk conversational pace walk for 25 minutes, the pre-walk hydration, the 5-minute activation sequence, and the 30-gram leucine-rich protein meal within 30 minutes of finishing her walk. Within 4 months, Helen had lost 17 pounds, with 11 pounds coming from her abdominal area. Her blood sugar dropped from pre-diabetic levels back into the completely normal range. Her doctor, the same doctor who told her it was over, called her results remarkable. Helen called me and said, "I feel like I got my life back." She is 74 years old. It is never too late. I want you to truly hear that. The research does not lie. Your body, regardless of your age, regardless of how many years you feel you may have lost, regardless of what anyone has told you about your metabolism, your age, or your limitations, still maintains an extraordinary ability to burn fat, build muscle, reduce inflammation, and transform itself in ways that can genuinely surprise you. The science we have covered today is not theoretical. It is reproducible, it is real, and it is available to you starting tomorrow morning. You deserve to feel strong. You deserve to walk up a flight of stairs without your heart pounding. You deserve to look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back at you. You deserve to live independently, with energy, vitality, and joy for as many decades as your heart continues beating. And the beautiful, profound truth, the truth that fills me with gratitude every single day I get to practice medicine, is that the path toward all of that can begin with something as simple and as human as putting on your shoes and taking a walk in the morning air. All scientific references cited in this video are linked in the description below. If you have a specific health condition, please speak with your physician before making changes to your exercise or nutrition routine. This video is educational in nature and intended to provide you with the most current, evidence-based information available. Now, here is what I want you to do right now. First, subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Click that button and ring the bell, because every week we bring you exactly this kind of science-backed, practical, senior-focused health information that you simply will not find anywhere else. And second, leave me a comment below. Tell me your age and tell me, are you going to try the fasted walking protocol starting tomorrow morning? Or maybe you are already doing it and you have a story to share. I genuinely want to know. I read every comment. This community that we are building together, seniors supporting seniors, science supporting hope, that is why I do this work. And I am honored, truly honored, that you spent this time with me today. Now, go get some rest tonight, because tomorrow morning